This week in CIST 2531, we'll look at Chapter 4, Editing and Combining Shapes and Paths. A couple things we're going to look at here is what different tools we'll work with include the scissor tool, the knife tool, working with the eraser tool. We'll look at how to join paths, cutting in straight lines with a knife tool, racing in a straight line. We'll look at those skills as well. We'll look at working with the shape builder tool, different shape modes, reshaping a path, using the width tool as well. We're going to start though with looking at the scissor tool versus the knife tool. The scissor tool will be located underneath your eraser tool. Now I've already added the knife tool to mine. You will need to add this, and we'll go through how to add the knife tool to your toolbar and other tools as well. All right, so first I'm going to zoom in so we can see the shapes that I'm working with. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down into my artboard selection and make sure that I have the Dino 1 selected. And then go to View and Fit Artboard and Window. Now I'm going to zoom in closer so we can get a better view of the area that we're going to be working with. Now, when we cut this path, what we're going to do is we're going to take a straight path and we're going to cut it into two open-ended paths using the scissor tool. So the scissor tool creates a path, a point, and it creates those two open paths. A knife tool is going to cut shapes into multiple closed shapes. So we'll start off, we're going to use the selection tool. And we're going to click on this purple image. The yellow is the stroke. And you'll see that when I cut this with the scissor tool and replace those ends, that the yellow will not go with it because it is, or will not be closed because it is open paths. So once again, we use the scissor tool here. And I'm going to go along my path until I see intersect. That's telling me where the center part of that path is. So I just simply click to place the cut and to use the scissor tool. So now using the direct selection tool, you see that I could be able to move the ends of this path individually of each other. Notice once again the stroke did not go with that. Okay, so that's how you would use a scissor tool. Okay, so it takes a solid path, a closed path, and cuts it to make it two open-ended paths. All right, so to join a path, first I want to make sure that I select, use my selection tool, and then I want to click away. All right, so this is an important step so that I don't have just one anchor point selected here. So then I'm going to click back in. So I've got the entire area selected. And then over in the quick actions, I'm going to use join. And so the join is taking those two paths, and now I'm drawing the path between the two. So now I'm joining those two open-ended paths and closing that path. And you'll see now that the stroke has been applied to that area. All right, so what you're going to do in your assignment through those, you're going to change that stroke at this point to 0. And you can use your keyboard arrows to turn the stroke off. You can also click in this area, apply the stroke. You can also click here if you were going to change the color of your stroke. But in this case, we are going to just get rid of the stroke and turn it off. Now I got to commit. All right, so we have the stroke cut off. We're going to now look at how to round the corners of this. We'll go to the direct selection tool. And we're going to drag this across the top of the shape so we have the two anchor points selected. And as we drag these in, so as we drag these corner radius widgets in, you'll see that we are getting a rounded shape to our image. Okay, so this is something we're going to use when we create our dinosaur, as we see in the ending results of how this dinosaur will look versus how it looks now. I'm comparing the two. One thing I want to point out, if you do need to scroll into your image, you can hold down the space bar, and that will turn your icon into your hand icon. So you then can drag the artboard around. All right, so next we're going to look at the knife tool. Now to add the knife tool, first we're going to come down here to the edit toolbar. And this gives me a lot more tools. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to scroll through these tools, the available tools here, and you're going to drag those to the toolbar. So where we have the scissor tool, when you drag through here and find the knife tool, I'm just going to find a random tool to show you the process. So let's say I'm going to add the slice selection tool. I would click this and drag it to the icon that I want to place it into that group. So for example, in this one, if I wanted to place it with the scissors, I would release that. In this case, it went underneath. But now it would be grouped with those. So you're going to do that with the knife tool. And then to close this, hit the escape key. All right, and to use the knife tool, you're simply just going to click and drag this into the area you want to cut. All right, so I've cut that area. And I can click on these and drag this to a new part. So I've cut that area out using the knife tool. I'm going to move this back and we'll go through that step one more time. So after I added the knife tool to my toolbar, I'm going to move this and make my cut. Deselect this, and you'll see now that these are two individual pieces now. So I've taken that one shape and I've cut it up. I can also cut with a straight line. Let me deselect this. So if I wanted to cut in a straight line for this image here, selecting my knife tool. Now, if I turn on my caps locks, you'll see my caps locks, it'll turn my icon into the crosshairs. This is going to give me a more precise ability to use my tool. So in this case, I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift on my keyboard for using Windows. If you're using a Mac, it'll be Option and Shift. So now if I just drag this in a straight line, I'll drag it down, it's going to cut in a straight line. So I want to release the mouse button first and then the keys. So now I'm going to deselect this, and now when I use my selection tool, I will have different paths, different options here, because I have now cut that in a straight line. All right, outlining strokes. It's a great way to turn a stroke line into a closed path. It's very important to remember why you're doing this, though, is because you can erase the path in a more freeform shape. So erase that path will have the effect of simply shortening the path. You won't be able to erase a contour and a path like you need to do. So using the outline in strokes, you go to this area here. So with the selection tool, I'm going to select the path of the purple circle. Then I would come up to Object, and then to Path. And then the options in the path, I'm going to choose Outline Stroke. All right, so what this did, it created a filled shape that's a closed path. So now I can erase part of that path. So using the eraser tool, okay, I can come in and start erasing areas. You see how it's being redefined. If I double click the eraser tool, this is where I get my options to set my angle, my roundness, the size of my eraser. So if I'm going to set this to say 40, it increases the size of my eraser. Now I'm going to go over to the dinosaur here and say I want to remove some of this. All right, so let me first make my selection here. We'll change the settings on this to a lower setting there to change the size. Now, with this, when I'm using the eraser tool for a straight line, I want to hold down my Shift key. And I'm going to draw a straight line. Now, you'll see this here. You'll notice that nothing gets erased. The reason why nothing was erased in that straight line is because I have this item selected. So if I wanted to remove something in a straight line, that it needs to make sure that it intercepts what I have selected. And to give you a more dramatic example, if I was going to erase in the middle of this, so now I've got a straight line in that. By using the Shift key and dragging, it will erase in a straight line. All right, so I'm going to go down here to Dino 2 now. I went to the artboard and changed it to Dino 2. And we're going to look at creating a compound path. So we'll make sure that we have our smart guides cut on. So we're going to go to View and make sure that smart guides are cut on, because this is going to help us align circles. You can also do this by selecting the circles and using the align properties as well, located in this area. All right, so if I was going to align these using the smart guides, it's simply that easy. So I'd have these selected. Also, once I move these in, excuse me, I'm going to make sure I select both images. So we can go to Object, and then I can come to Compound Path, and I'm going to choose Make. So I'm making a compound path of this image, and you'll see that where this is going to be used in your final artwork. So I've taken that dark gray image and I've used it to really take a part of the yellow circle out. So I punched a hole in it. Now, in this, let me zoom in. With this as well, so I'm going to drag these into this. Now this, if this doesn't come up this way, you'll want to use the bring to the front and bring it forward in case it's behind it. So that's how to use a compound, create a compound path. All right, so we're going to look at now at combining shapes. We're going to work with the shape builder tool. So first we'll make sure we have the selection tool, and I'm going to select this area here and make sure that I have this selection selected. And then I'm going to use the shape building tool here. A couple things I'm going to do first. To make this a little bit more easier to see, I'm going to increase the stroke. As your book recommends, put it on orange and then increasing the stroke to 5. Makes it a little bit more visible. All right, so using the edit shape, so you see how I am, where I draw this, I am merging those shapes. So now that has been merged. To take it back a second, if we look at this, you see that these are two different paths. So what I am doing here with this is I am now making this all one path. You see that path has now been combined. So that is my shape builder tool. So I've taken this and I am creating paths. Now if I want to remove sections of this, I would use the shape builder tool and hold down the Alt key. And you see that I am removing paths at that point. Let me actually select the whole thing here. So you see I can remove sections of the path and parts of the path. One thing too, one of the steps you'll have to do is you'll have to draw a triangle. I actually had skipped over the step. So I'm going to start with the polygon tool to draw one. Now I've already set this up to draw a triangle. For you to have this, you'll need to one second, let me go back to undo this. All right. So when you double click or click the polygon tool and then click in the area, you can then set the sizes or the number of sides for the triangle you're going to draw. You can place it, and you can also resize this as needed um, once you have this drawn, or reposition it using the bounding box. All right, so using this way, using the parts where I'm going to delete some of this, using the shape builder tool. So now I can first make my selection. And you'll see that I can remove areas of this now. And it's combining the shape in. All right, so after you finish these steps, you will be assembling your dinosaur. You will be dragging the images over and placing them on your dinosaur and resizing them to the correct location. Be careful not to grab that wrong area. So once you have these in, we'll look at Dino 3 down here. We'll see that we've got some different options down here for things that we work with. So we see we've got all these different shapes. So if I want to combine these permanently, so I'm going to first make my selection, drag my selection tool across those to select all of the shapes. And then over into the quick access area in the properties, you'll see a pathfinder. So in here, I'm going to use this, the Unite button. And what this is going to do, this is going to permanently make those a compound shape. So you see now that it is the outline of the shape. So now if I wanted to drag this area over and place it, okay, now I've got the head of my dino completed. I can also change the fill color as well. In this case, we're going to change it to aqua. And we're going to change the stroke to 0. We can also reshape a path. So looking at reshaping a path, we're going to be using the width tool. And we'll be working on this green image here. First, I'm going to go up to select and deselect everything I have selected. Then let me zoom in a little bit more on just this area here. All right, so with the width tool, you know, this is something that can be tricky, especially if you've got paths that are close together. And it's going to be located in your toolbar with this. So you see that I've got a path here. So if I'm going to select this area here, so using the width tool, I can drag these images out. So I can blow this up. I can adjust the width of the image to draw unique shapes using the width tool. And so it allows me to drag an existing anchor point to expand that area. So once again, once you're finished and you've placed all of your pieces into your dinosaur should resemble the ending document.